Hey guys, what's up? This is Cyclonic here, bringing you guys Design Critiques episode number 15. Uh, Unfortunately, got kind of delayed on this for like a month, but no worries, better late than never, right? So, for those of you who aren't familiar with this series, I'm going through a bunch of pieces that were submitted to me, giving my feedback on them, things that I think could make them better. Some of them might be more stylistic changes. Some of them might be more objective changes that I think should be made. But it's all up to you to consider the feedback and implement whatever you choose, whatever you agree with, whatever you understand. So without further ado, let's get back into it. So this is a piece here by uhreezo and I believe Marty, a duo collab. So it's a graphic for, I'm guessing, a guy who's committed to a certain college. So there's kind of nice black and white theme going. It's easy to see the central portion here, the name. I'm not as much a fan of this, how this committed text looks. Just because you want people to know that like the committed is like almost the most important part of this whole thing, because these the committed graphics are real, like for the college recruiting season, they're a real wave during that time. So I'd make this more visible and more readable. Not using the stroke, like a white stroke on top of a white jersey isn't the best idea for visibility there. Another thing I would do is that this side of the graphic looks kinda overweighted compared to this one. Like here there's two lines, here there's one line, stuff like that. So I would maybe try to balance it out a little bit, but it could be more of a stylistic thing. I like the effects around here. I would maybe create some depth between this backside Russell and this front Russell. Maybe put some shadowing there to really give this portion some contrast. You don't have to necessarily fade this one out, but maybe like a black shadow here would kind of help things a bit, almost like it is here. Maybe a little less dark than down here, but I think that would really help make this image pop. Because I maybe almost would have switched this design around a bit, so that this front-facing one is the main thing, and then you see his jersey number in the back of a jersey and is in a dramatic kind of like fade out at the top. I maybe would have switched them, and this way it kind of throws me off to have how it's ordered right now. So that's something I would do. This Malik Russell thing, like the text effect, is a nice idea, but it seems a little too powerful. I might have taken these two duplicates right here and lowered their opacity a bit so that the main name is still visible, but then you can have this little effect if you want to. Honestly, would have just seen what you're gonna try to do, playing around with different shades of gray on this graphic, because it's just pure black and white. So like with all these effects, there's not a great way right now that you have it set up to have these effects in but not have them take away attention from the main portion. So maybe trying to figure out how you could have played around with more grayscale tones would have been helpful to like have all these components in there but not taking away from the main idea. The RGB is a nice touch, maybe a slight bit overdone, but I still think it's a nice touch. Here I like the grunge particles in the background. So overall, I think it's a good foundation for a piece, but there's definitely some changes I would have made to make it a more readable graphic. So yeah, I think that about summarizes my feedback there. Alright, this one is a Pro-Am graphic summarizing a bunch of teams here and a bunch of leagues up top. I'm trying to think if there's any major feedback I have here. I think it's a nice way to organize everything. I like having the I like how you get into the practice of like showing like the partials of the logos. I think that provides a nice text effect. One thing I'd be wary of, and this is a small thing that you might have just forgotten to nitpick at the end, but if you're going to, you should probably align both of these. So either make this big things, like this big top part, smaller to align to this right edge, or center this so that there's the same amount of overlap on both sides. And then I think there might also be something to say for some of these logos that aren't necessarily fully known yet, that aren't household brands. So like you could, it might be worth it to put some of their logos smaller and in full, like the full icons, and do it that way. That might be a little bit more worth it, so everything's not quite so boxy. I also think it might be a good idea to have the sort of title on there, because yes, you have the ability like to put things in copy as social, as like the social account runners would say, like, so you could have like the, some associated text in the tweet, but I think it's still a good idea to have some sort of title space here, and put an actual title for what the graphic is, because it is nice when you can make a graphic standalone without too much effort. So I would make that that change there, maybe to put a title on it. But as far as like the overall structuring of this part goes, like the visuals look nice. And maybe one last thing I would do is that, I don't know if it's because like the llNapll, like whatever brand you're making with it is has the red color in there, but since red isn't common for most of these, I think it would make more sense to have the backing be white, a more white, like a light gray / white, to make this graphic pop a little more, because the red does take the dullness, it does make it a little bit dull, and it also, since it isn't a part of a lot of these logos, it might just make more sense to go with a more neutral color there. But yeah, the main thing is honestly just centering this top part. That's the only real thing that I would have a that I would say needs to be done. But other than that, it's mostly like stylistic, opinionated changes there that I can see. So yeah, really nice job on this one. Honestly, I like how it looks. Alright, so this one is a piece by Blackouts, Cristiano Ronaldo piece here. So one thing that I just noticed off rip is I don't know if there's a reason that his hair is somewhat green like that. I don't know if that's I see it here too a little bit. Maybe it's an actual I mean, that's how his hair is. I don't know. I don't keep up to date with the hairstyle necessarily, but I would maybe look into that part. Could have been fixed maybe if needed. But as far as like major compositional things go, one thing that threw me off was that his arm was behind this black portion. So now you sort of create a little bit of a weird depth perception, where if you're gonna do that sort of layering where the guy isn't just on top of the picture or fading into it, then it almost makes you think like, okay, I would expect that this black layer is kind of on top of this CR7, which means the CR7 should have some sort of an inner shadow. That's something that kind of threw me off there. Then here with the Cristiano Ronaldo, I would have given this a little bit more spacing in the middle of the text, so it's not just like a clumped, it seems just sort of clumped up here, honestly, into this 7. I might have honestly put it over here, and given this right side a little bit of something to hold. I like the effect down here a lot, the signature, the fading here, the CCs all match pretty much. I like that. I'll say it again here, and I've said this a lot of times to different people. The feet aren't the only thing that creates a shadow, so you want to have the rest of his body creating a little bit of a shadow here. Obviously not as dark as the foot will be, because the foot is right on the ground, but the rest of it I think should definitely show some more shadowing there. This texturing of the field, well done. I really like it. The fading is blending is nicely down here. The grunge particle and all that, and then the Juventus. Is it Juventus or Juventus? I forget. I think it's Juventus. But that this stuff is done nicely here. So other than this portion right here in the hair, and then the name, I think maybe even a thinner font would have been better there. It just looks clunky up there, and I don't know a better way to describe it than that. Maybe I could have fathomed it more if you had made the Cristiano align to the edges of the Ronaldo, and then that would have been a rectangle fitting up here, and then I could have been a little bit more. It would have fit a little bit better to me. But it's just these two parts just really threw me off for some reason. Shadowing down here. So yeah, other than that, I think it's a solid, very solid piece. Maybe it's, now that I think about it, maybe it's worth it to have the red on the stripe match the sort of red that's on the jersey, because it's not like you put the logo anywhere, so like there's no other place to really match the salmon color other than this more pinkish thing here. So I would have just honestly color matched them and done that. So yeah, okay, I think that will summarize my feedback then. Alright. This is a header here by Amazed Visions. So interesting use of a background texture. I guess I sort of associate this with like a transparency thing. It's still a nice, not a bad texture to use, and you have these kind of like you have these kind of like fading light streaks going in there. One thing that throws me a bit off is that like these actually look like light streaks with how they're fading and how you have these sort of like stronger portions. Over here, they seem a lot more discreet. Other than this one right here, they just seem a lot more like just flat things placed on there, and that throws me off a bit. Like, it's not as consistent as this side is. Another thing is that having this white portion here that doesn't match the curvature here or really play into the corner well, I think that honestly kind of throws the quality of the piece off a little bit. This part is, as I said, maybe you don't need this fading out portion. You just keep it as a streak going. So then the logo in the middle is fine. The socials though, they caught my eye instantly, and maybe this is just this could just be stylistic preference, honestly, what I'm about to say in terms of these socials, but it's odd to me to have the socials encased like this, and then the logo just floating on its own, like it's not part of the structure. If you're gonna make a structure for the text, I would honestly make sure that the logo is embedded into that structure to really mesh it well together. Next thing is that the logo has curved edges. You're using curves here a lot. These socials are the only things that don't have curved edges, so I would have made these rounded rectangles and then skewed them. And then last thing is that one thing is that I would have just made the text smaller to fit in and made these outlines a bit smaller, because like at least in my opinion, the socials on a header should be like clean portions that aren't too small but aren't like massively big either, where they're nearly the same scale as the logo. I would have just tried to fit them into this gray portion right here, but I honestly think that adding an at makes them it's a redundant character that you're adding, because everyone knows at this point that it's going to come up if you search this portion in. You don't need the at really to help with solidifying that, so it's just an extra character there that's taking up space that I wouldn't necessarily add myself. So I think that about covers my sort of video. The color scheme itself is not a bad color scheme. You have some nice RGB going around. But going back to the whole consistency issue thing, especially that there's so much red over here, and then there's just this little bit of white. So like the header is pretty overwhelmingly red as far as the design goes. So like if you had made this portion or this portion white, that same silvery look that you had going on over here, I think it would have made the header a lot nicer. And then to have this sort of cut off here, this portion doesn't look like it's meant to be cut off here. I think that's what's a really big part of what's throwing me off, is that this portion looks fine. I don't think, it didn't look like this was meant to be cut off like this. So it sort of gave a weird thing, like almost like the header was cut off here, and then I wouldn't know why this portion is here. So, and then especially if it's cut off like this, you'd expect to like this lineage right here to be curved off in the same way. So it's just stuff geometrically doesn't make sense to me up here. But down here, for the most part, other than this line, it makes sense to me. Like this curvature matches and such. So yeah, some bits of feedback to hopefully take with you to your next piece, although I know I am a month late, so it's entirely possible that a lot of you have made these sort of changes moving forward. The last thing that I'm going to do is this animated package from Segura. I hope that I didn't butcher your name, but let's pull it up here. Alright, so here's a good place for me to pause it. So the geometry, that stuff looks nice. I have no major issues with that. The thing that's really throwing me off about this, and about the piece, and it's mainly the screens that are throwing me off, is this light sweep. I know a lot of people like to use it. And it looks good when you put it on stuff that could look metallic. I think that's where the light sweep is really useful, where like stuff can look, where it's metallic, so it'll really enhance the light sweep will really enhance the metallic effect. But here though, there's two issues with this freeze footage of the starting image for me. First is that this piece behind is very flat and dull compared to the rest of the coloring you're using here. So as it is, the screens aren't consistent with the rest of the design you're producing. If it looked more like these designs, light sweep I think would have been warranted there. But on a dull background, the light sweep just looks kind of, at least to me, it looks kind of tacky and not, it just doesn't fit for me, honestly. Then the second part that I think is a little bit more important even, is that everything here is layered on top of the light sweep, and at that point it just straight up doesn't make much sense to me, because you'd imagine the light sweep would be going over the whole piece like it is here. Like here you have the light sweeps clearly going over the entire portion. Here that's not the case, so like the screen design myself, I just think it needs to be reworked, honestly. One, make the color scheme more like these ones so it pops a little bit more. It's extremely dull how it is right now. Second thing is that the light sweep, if you're going to use it on this sort of thing, at least layer it on top. Maybe try to use some metallic or gradiented stuff somewhere to make sure that the light sweep is meant to be, I think, an accentuating effect, an accentuating piece, and not meant to be the main meat of something that you are animating. Otherwise it draws so much attention that you miss like the important parts of this. Another thing I'll say is that I guess these are consistent, the text are consistent, but like you're using bolded, and so it's something that you need, you know, the subscriber follow, that stuff that you want people to take note of. Here, these texts are the same weightage, I would have made these bold to really make these kind of to make these match. But yeah, that goes back to my point about the whole consistency thing. So the same sort of design elements you use here, I would use all throughout your designs to really get a consistent feel for it. But overall though, I like the setup. I like the geometric setup on these portions at least. It's made a screen that I think need to be heavily reworked. But it's definitely a good foundation for a piece moving forward. So yeah, hopefully you guys learned some stuff. You got some stuff to think over as you saw the feedback here. You know, definitely feel free to reach out to me if you want to talk about some of the stuff I've mentioned. And hopefully anyone who's watching that didn't necessarily submit a piece, hopefully you guys might have learned something from watching this video as well. So with that being said, any likes, comments, subscriptions, definitely appreciated. And with that being said, I will catch y'all later on the next episode. So, peace.